I guess we lost everyone else. There's all right. We got Nick at least. We lost Jazz, but all right, we'll get started, and hopefully Jazz will be able to join. So thanks everyone for joining us on the post race for the Monaco GP. Nick, you got any initial thoughts? Well, I guess what do you think about first of all the whole they basically waited for the rain to stop before they started the race.
Like it's as if they've never encountered rain before in any race throughout the entire Formula One history. It was stupid to wait like an entire hour to wait to run this race. There was no real point to it. I get the whole driver safety thing, but these guys have raced in heavier conditions before. Like it was really like maybe what 10, 15 minutes of hard rain and then pretty much it subsided after that. I mean, they could have held it for like maybe 30 minutes, but to wait like a whole hour for it to start, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, once you get into that whole like, all right, we're gonna wait for it to get better, then you end up just waiting for a while. So
Right.
Jazz, while we were, Jazz was on the stream with us and then lost internet right when we came live. So I just asked him what he thought about the. You can answer too, and then take over your normal role hosting. Of what you thought about the decision to kind of hold off on starting the race until basically the rain had stopped.
Well, it worked out for me because I woke up late, so it helped for me to watch it. But no. I mean, aside from my selfish reasons, yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with what Nick said. At this point, I mean, I understand that maybe the whole week, the whole, I guess, well, not the whole week, but the last couple of days, they didn't have to race on, in those conditions. But for me, like, after that torrential downpour, you got to start the race at some point and try to get in as much as you can. And I think they held off a little too long. It did create some drama, right? It created some interesting racing and some interesting strategies that ended up backfiring and helping for some of the other teams, or hurting some of the teams. So I think at the end of the day, typical Monaco drama, but at the same time, kind of what we expected. Not much overtaking, and the fastest teams that get out in front, and that's it. Unless, like I said, obviously some pit strategies ended up hurting, especially Ferrari, but they still had an opportunity at the end. But if you're able to race the whole entire, all the laps, then that could have potentially been a different outcome. But it is what it is, man. That's why we have the races.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know how
I
you guys
agree.
felt, but
Well, I'll just talk about the weather, and then I'll hand it to you to kind of do the hosting. So
yeah,
the as far as I'm concerned, unless there's standing water like flowing across the track, as soon as you get those rivers on the track, you can't drive on that. That's a death trap. But
right.
there wasn't that. There was some puddling offline, but it was drivable. So I don't understand why they decided not to. I think it was more just I don't even know. I think just everyone's skittish a little bit, but then
Because
once
it's
they started doing
because it's
that, they're
Formula
like,
One, you know.
right, but then once they start that, then they're like, it's dry now, but then they're looking at the radar. Wait, this other cell might come in. Once you get into that, that pattern, it's just like, dude, if the cars can stay on the track, because I do think it would have been more interesting to see who could handle the tougher, because they didn't have to drive in the toughest conditions. It would have allowed the driver skill to show a little more.
Right.
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. So, I mean, that being said, still ended up being a pretty interesting drive, or I guess a pretty interesting race. And then at the end of the day, it came down to the top two teams, right? It came down to Red Bull and Ferrari. Disappointing race for Charles Leclerc at the end. When it's all said and done, an opportunity to take back the points lead and, you know, win in this home race. And it was just really disappointing for him. He obviously was very disappointed at the end of the race. Um, I guess what I really want, and props to Checo and to for driving the way he did. But they had a nice strategy as well. And at the end, I thought that, and we spoke about this, you and I, Vish. The tire strategy that I think was an opportunity, and I didn't see it. I didn't understand it as well as you did. But the Ferrari going onto the hards and um, Red Bull on the mediums gave them an opportunity that later on in the race, right during the end, the final laps, an opportunity to maybe be able to overtake because those mediums are going to give out, right? So how did that strategy work out for both teams? And what was the situation in the pits that caused Leclerc to lose so much? I guess lose the lead, right?
Well, first on the let's take the last question first.
Yeah.
They were in between strategies, and that's where you got the whole come in, wait, no, and then it was too late. So like, I think if they'd committed to either strategy, they probably would have been fine because actually, Sainz ended up not coming in at all until they went to hards. Both of the Red Bulls did the full wet to intermediate to hard, and then they ended up on medium after the red flag. But they actually did the same pit strategy that Leclerc did. They just did it correctly, which means I know I'm going to pit 2 more times, so I'm going to shred these inters and I'm going to shred these wets. Whereas it looked like after Leclerc came in, like they were almost like trying to save the inters, like they thought it was going to rain again. I'm not sure. And that's where that gap opened up. That's where, because on the inters is where Red Bull, now with the clear track, because they've pitted out of sequence, just ate the lap times up. And that's how they were able to come out ahead when everyone pitted for dries. So I think it was both bad strategy call, but Sainz actually did the other strategy. And he stayed out on wets and then went straight to hards, and Checo got in front of him. Now, if you think about the gap Leclerc had back to Sainz, he probably would have come out in front of Checo if he'd just done the same strategy as Sainz. But if you recall, Sainz overruled Ferrari. They're like, come in. He's like, no. So fair play to him because he was just like, I'm not doing that. That's stupid. We're going to wait till hards to come in. And all things being equal, it probably looks like the correct strategy was what Red Bull did, which was optimally pit for the inners with the understanding you're only going to use them for a few laps. So you drive the shit out of them and then go back into the pit. But the second best strategy is what Sainz did, and Leclerc ended up in the middle. And you could see up and down the grid, the issue with going to those inters is if you get stuck behind someone, you're done. Doesn't matter how much pace is in the car, and you saw that up and down the field. So that was always in consideration on when to bring them in. And I think the issue for Leclerc was if they brought him in earlier, he would have gotten stuck. He needed to open up the gap bigger. So once they did that, they did bring him out in clean air, but it was not the optimal time. And just that little, I mean, we're talking about a couple of seconds, right, to go from first to fourth because the field was so compressed. So it's not that big of an error, but that's all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially in this track, right?
Yeah. I mean, when I talked about it earlier this week, I was going to say that this race is going to come down to strategy with Ferrari and Red Bull, and how Ferrari has in the past had questionable strategy decisions, which has cost them points or perhaps winning a race. And we've seen that now here and in some of the past couple of other races earlier this season. And I am starting to question, the people behind the scenes of like why it seems like they have pretty much killed like chances for their drivers to either win races or get podium finishes.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm concerned with obviously the past couple of results and the way that they are strategizing, I guess, for some of these races. However, I think I don't know if it's really just on them.
Yeah, no, and I think in Ferrari has a history of messing things up. We've talked about that, but in this case, like this was such a difficult one to call because you see people going out in inners and they're going faster, and normally that means all right, I need to dump these tires. Except you can't pass anyone here, so that you could be 3 seconds faster if you get stuck behind someone. You're now going their pace. And so this was just not a straightforward call to make. And frankly, they were all guessing. And again, you're talking about fractions of a second. Like Checo almost came out side by side with Sainz. Max, frankly, I'm still unclear. It looked to me like he cut the yellow line. They didn't penalize him for some reason. Right. But that whole inability to pass complicates the whole strategy because you're like, I know that tire is faster, but if I come out in the wrong window, I'm done. And you saw that. So I mean, as much as like I love to beat up Ferrari's strategy in this case, like, I mean, it's so difficult to do this. And again, with the top 4 on top of each other, you make a mistake that causes you a half a second on one lap. That's it. You're now behind, and you'll never get it back because you can't pass.
I guess my question was, right? My question is, what was Leclerc so pissed off about in pit lane? Was it an issue with with him coming out or going in at a certain time? What was the main issue with that, and why was he so upset?
I think just because he was in first and he came out in fourth after all the pitting. I mean, I think it's that simple. I don't think it was there, and the whole they told him to pit and he's pitting, and then like no, stay out. And then he comes out in fourth, so it looks like a massive error.
Right.
Which, I mean, it sort of is. It's just that the problem with Monaco is it's unrecoverable when you do it there. You can't. A normal race, you'd be like, I still have the fastest car. I'm 2 seconds behind, no problem.
Right.
Here, it's like I can't pass anyone. I'm screwed. Like it's why I don't like this race, but it makes the strategy calls have to be exactly right. I mean, we saw it. The only overtaking we saw was drivers that went on the inters and the wets were fully gone and multiple laps to I'll answer that question in a second, but multiple laps to try and get around. Like Gasly took forever and finally made that pass. At that point you've lost 30 seconds. Like there's no point in doing it. And then the other half of that is even like when Hamilton had that big pace advantage on Ocon and he gets hit, right? I mean, it's just impossible. And if you think Checo was going to even if Sainz got a run on him, was not going to punt him off the road, you're out of your mind. Like, I mean, it's just like he was going to, they call it making your car big, except there's nowhere to make it big here. It's basically like, you're going to get hit. Like if you try to make a pass for the lead, and send it up the inside, like the dude's gonna hit you right into the wall. He's gonna veer over, and you're gonna either have to crash or back out of it. Like that's the reality of this circuit. In terms of could Ferrari have double stacked their cars, they actually did the second time when because it was Sainz's first stop and Leclerc's second. The first time they were on different. They wanted to bring them both in for inters. Turns out that it was the wrong time to do that, and or they didn't do the lap times. But Leclerc is the only one that pitted for inters. Sainz only did the one stop, which was going from what's wet straight to slicks, and he did that because he refused to pit. They asked him to come in, he's like no. So he overruled the pit crew, but they were going to do them both as go to inners and then go to hards, which is what. But that's what Red Bull did, and they won. So it wasn't necessarily that was the wrong strategy because the inters were that much faster. And if they bring Leclerc out in clean air on inters, he should be able to do the lap times. He didn't as well. It was both things. So it just didn't work out. But again, it's not an obvious call. You're talking about if I stay out one more lap versus not staying out one more lap makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And you know what? And real quick, before we kind of just quickly go through a couple of the drivers in the midfield, it didn't affect the driver standings too much, right? Because I think Verstappen only gained 3 points on Leclerc anyways. So they're still within, he's still within striking distance there. I think where the gap maybe grew a little bit more was obviously in the constructors, but again, this is a Ferrari Red Bull or Red Bull Ferrari, however you want to mention it. This is a race between those two teams, and I think that you saw again, kind of transitioning over to the midfield, another strong showing by Mercedes with Russell and another top 5 showing, which is good for him. Hamilton maybe had a more disappointing drive, ending up I believe in 8th. So a little bit of a disappointing drive for him. I'm sure there was a lot that we'll go into on Wednesday.
Yeah, they actually, just interestingly enough with them, they split strategies as well. Russell was the other car. I think him and Sainz are the only ones that did not go to inners. He went straight to hards. And actually, if it's kind of weird because Hamilton passed Ocon hit him. Right. And then they took so long to give the penalty. Yeah, like an hour later, like what was that? Like they should have made him give the place back because it already ruined Hamilton's race because that was where he actually would have been. So what you saw, the reason that it worked for Red Bull and it didn't work for Hamilton is Red Bull didn't get stuck behind someone on wets. So they were able to put the lap times in. And actually,
Right.
Hamilton made the pass he needed to make, and he got hit. And to do a penalty like an hour later for that, it's just like, what's the point at that point? You've kind of ruined everyone's race. But that was his
Okay.
gamble was, and this is why the other front runners didn't do this because, I mean, he had the pass until Ocon hit him, but that was like an impossible pass he was trying to pull off. Just that's why you don't do that. If you're not sure you're gonna get clean air, it's
Which I think,
tough.
which I think, going back to it, I think Sainz had an opportunity at one point, right towards the end, to make a pass, but again, it was kind of like an impossible pass where he would have put himself in a lot of danger there. So I think that he kind of backed off a little bit, and that's at that point, that
Yeah,
was
but
it.
he tried what he was trying to do. I think at the hairpin was force a
Right,
mistake. He's like, I'm gonna go kind of outside because you need Checo to mess up. Like that's the
right.
only
He needed
way.
to apply pressure.
Yeah,
Right.
so he's kind of like, let me go around the outside, get in his mirror, let him see me out here, see if he like runs wide or something. It didn't. Checo was perfect. Did not make a
Yeah.
single mistake.
He drove an excellent race. You got to give him props. But yeah, in the midfield again, Russell 5. I think Lando, excuse me, Lando Norris with another strong finish for the McLarens at 6. I think that he drove pretty nicely as well. So nice showing by Lando. 7th was Alonso, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
Right? Was Alonso?
he held everyone up.
Yeah.
It was the Alonso train, as Jack
Yeah,
mentioned earlier.
yeah.
So finished with Alonso at 7, Hamilton at 8, and then 9 and 10. Excuse me, I'm sorry, guys.
I think it was Bottas.
Well, technically it was Ocon and Bottas, but Ocon drops out, so Bottas goes to 9.
I thought it was, and then Vettel, I think, ended up 10.
Vettel or Gasly, one of those two. Yeah, it was Vettel or Gasly. I think it was Vettel, which I can't see there, but
yeah, that's Vettel.
Vettel? Okay, Vettel. There we go. So Vettel gets a little top 10 action going again. So good for him. We'll definitely go over, break down the race a little more in detail and get into the next one, which I don't have it up, but what's the next one? Where are we going next?
I think it's
Azerbaijan.
No, it's
Azerbaijan.
Please tell me it's not next weekend. We need a break. All right, it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's in 2 weeks. It's in 2 weeks. Thanks, God. Yeah,
So, we don't come on. We don't need to do this every week.
Yeah, we definitely need a break from that one. But yeah, we'll get into that Wednesday. We'll kind of break down Monaco a little bit more, get into detail there with what happened with again with Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren, and the rest of the bunch. So we'll definitely talk about that. And of course, another disappointing and scary scene with the Haas as Mick Schumacher broke his car in half, basically. So which was kind of scary.
And Magnussen retired as well. And I think they are very quickly returning to their normal position as like by far the worst team on the grid. That's not doing upgrades and is just there to make the numbers up.
Poor Gunther. Anyways, yeah, we'll see you guys on Wednesday night at 9:30. Make sure you check us out on Twitter at F1_5 Reasons and on Instagram at Hitting the Apex 5R. Go ahead and log in and subscribe to the 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube channel as well. Click the like button. Make sure you check out and search for Hitting the Apex on all social media. Again, on Instagram and on Twitter. So we'll see you guys next Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. right here on Hitting the Apex. Take it easy, Vish and Nick. We'll see you guys.